Sit down, Michael. You're done. The voice of Senator Greer, a low, guttural drawl from the deep south, cut through the quiet of the Senate hearing room. Klieg lights hissed. Every camera lens in the crowded gallery was fixed on Michael B. Jordan. He stood, his 6-foot frame perfectly still, a calm anchor in a hurricane of noise. The polished oak paneling and marble columns seemed to amplify the silence he commanded. I asked you a question, Mr. Jordan. Greer pressed, leaning into the microphone, his face a practiced mask of patronizing concern. Did you, or did you not, violate the ethical agreement of your contract with Ethel Broadcasting on the night of November 14th? Michael didn't move. He didn't blink. His silence was a shield. It was a strategic wall thrown up against the relentless, racist current of the system. Greer slammed his palm on the desk. A sharp, violent punctuation mark. Look at me when I'm addressing you, boy. We're talking about millions of dollars, national security implications tied to your alleged breach of conduct, and you stand there doing a bad imitation of a revolutionary martyr? The word, boy, hung in the cathedral-like air. Heavy. Historical. Designed to break him. Michael's jaw tightened, a tremor barely perceptible beneath his skin. His lawyer, Leah Vance, a woman with the focused energy of a laser, placed a warning hand on his arm. Her eyes screamed, "Don't. Give them the clip." Greer, sensing the moment of high drama, pushed harder, aiming for the definitive, viral soundbite. He reached down and picked up a large, glossy photo print. He didn't flash it toward the cameras yet. He held it up, just for Michael's eyes. This is your friend, David. Dead in a convenient car crash last week. Conveniently, wasn't it? Because David knew exactly what you were trying to expose about Ethel's corporate structure. Greer sneered, his voice dropping to a theatrical whisper that every microphone captured. You think you're fighting for justice, Mr. Jordan, but all you've done is expose your own arrogance. You're disposable. And now, you've gotten someone else killed. Greer hurled the photo onto the witness table. It landed face up. It wasn't David's corpse. It was a picture of Michael, 5 years ago, laughing, standing next to a man with a neo-Nazi tattoo on his neck. An obvious, grotesque digital manipulation, but the perfect piece of media poison. The cameras flashed, blinding. The room erupted into chaos, shouts, gasps, the frantic murmuring of journalists. Michael looked down at the image. The lie was monumental, calculated to destroy his credibility and end his career. This was no longer a contract dispute. This was a war. His silence broke, not with a word, but a low, sharp intake of breath. He looked up, past Greer's smug, triumphant face, past the dizzying, flashing array of cameras. In that moment of complete public humiliation, the anger that had been simmering for weeks crystallized into something hard, cold, and strategic. Cut to black. Washington, D.C., 3 weeks earlier. The energy backstage at Ethel Broadcasting Studios, home to Michael B. Jordan's hit political commentary show, The Apex, was a tightly wound wire ready to snap. Michael wasn't just an actor. He was a cultural force who had leveraged his fame into becoming one of the most powerful, and therefore dangerous, political hosts in America. You cannot run this segment, Michael. You know the damn rules. Kevin Rhodes, the network vice president, a man whose smile never quite reached his cold eyes, blocked the doorway to the control room. He wore a $6,000 suit and the permanent, suffocating scent of corporate loyalty. The rules, Gavin, are that we report the truth, Michael said, his voice quiet, carrying more threat than a shout. He stared past Gavin at the control room monitor, where the script for the evening segment, The Ethel Nexus, Local Policing and Corporate Profit, glowed ominously. Ethel Broadcasting wasn't just a media company. It was a wholly owned subsidiary of Argos Defense and Logistics, a massive defense contractor with tentacles deep in local government contracts, including police equipment, surveillance systems, and privatized prisons. Michael's segment was about to expose how Argos pushed high-tech, expensive, and often flawed surveillance gear onto the DC police force, funded by rigged municipal bonds. The truth is whatever the shareholders decide it is, Michael. The truth is whatever keeps us on the air, Gavin countered, his tone hardening. Argos is our parent company. They sign our checks. You run this, and you're signing your own termination papers, not just from the show, but from the entire network. And you'll run another puff piece on the mayor's new initiative? While they're spying on the neighborhoods I grew up in with equipment that doesn't work. Michael's eyes locked onto Gavin's, a slow burn of frustration. You forget why I started the Apex. I forget nothing, Gavin whispered, leaning close. I remember a very talented young man who agreed to play ball. Don't let your self-righteousness ruin a good thing, Michael. They will crush you. They'll crush your family. They'll crush the narrative that made you successful. Michael stepped back, pulling out his earpiece. Run the opening sequence, he ordered the control room, speaking clearly over Gavin's sputtering protest. We're going live in 60 seconds. The corporate panic was instantaneous. Gavin turned white, realizing Michael was going rogue. This was the moment of the breach. The moment Michael chose the truth over the empire that had built him. The segment aired. It was a masterpiece of cold, factual journalism, exposing the Argos DC police pipeline with irrefutable documents provided by David, a mid-level Argos analyst who had risked everything. The next morning, the legal hammer dropped. Not a simple breach of contract letter, but a comprehensive 300-page injunction, a preemptive, scorched earth maneuver. Michael sat in Leah Vance's austere, high-rise office, the sunlight cold against the glass. They didn't fire you for the segment, Leah said, pushing a thick document across the desk. They're trying to fire you for something they fabricated 3 weeks ago. Michael picked up the document. Ethel Broadcasting Internal Memo, October 15th. The date was a week before the expose. Read the termination reason, Leah commanded. Reason for immediate termination. Violation of Moral Turpitude Clause 4.b. Inappropriate and discriminatory viewer engagement strategies, specifically utilizing the host's public persona to incite racial division and manipulate low-income demographics for political gain. Michael read the words again, a bitter laugh escaping him. They're saying I'm a racist agitator. They're using my own platform and my own identity to destroy my career. It's cleaner than citing the expose. They want to make the fight about your character and your race, not about Argos' defense contracts. If they win on morality, the expose dies, and you're dead forever. Leah leaned forward. This is political strategy, Michael. Argos has friends on that Senate committee. Greer is their puppet. They don't just want you off the air, they want you erased. His phone buzzed. It was Marcus Cole, a journalist Michael considered a friend and often worked with. Marcus was sharp, ambitious, and had the access Michael needed. Michael stared at the message. Marcus was a known commodity, eager to break the next big story. Was this genuine solidarity, or Marcus fishing for the exclusive source that could protect Argos' interests? He didn't text back. Trust was a currency Michael had just run out of. In the subsequent days, the media onslaught began. Ethel, leveraging its network assets, released controlled leaks painting Michael as an erratic, difficult, and manipulative host. The narrative of the angry black man was being meticulously constructed by people who understood exactly how to wield perception. His colleagues began to distance themselves. Vanessa, his loyal producer, called him late one night, her voice strained. Michael, I had to sign an NDA. They're offering me the executive producer spot on the news show, the one replacing the Apex. she confessed, shame evident in her tone. They said if I don't take it, they'll blacklist me from the entire industry. I have a kid, Michael. I'm sorry. I understand, Vanessa, he replied, the bitterness tasting like ash. He did understand. The system worked perfectly. It didn't just punish the offender, it coerced the innocent into becoming collaborators. Then came the call from David, the analyst who provided the documents. They know I leaked it, Michael. David's voice was frantic, distorted by a burner phone. Argo's security was here. They didn't take anything. They just left a note. Ethel memo, dated a month ago, detailing restructuring of the Argo's Ethel D.C. contracts. It proves they've been lying about the police system's efficacy for months. Where are you now, David? On the road. Don't worry. I have a copy of the new memo. I'll get it to Leah. Just promise me you won't back down. Not for me. Not for anyone. That was the last time Michael spoke to David. David's car crash was reported 48 hours later. An apparent solo vehicle incident on a remote stretch of highway. No skid marks. No witnesses. Just David and the evidence he carried gone. The news of David's death hit Michael with the force of a physical blow. It wasn't just a loss, it was confirmation. He hadn't just exposed corruption, he had engaged a machine that kills. The public hearing was set 2 days later. It wasn't about David's death, the official ruling was accidental. It was about Michael's fitness to hold an influential media position, framed entirely by the malicious moral turpitude clause. Senator Greer, the Argos man, chaired the committee. The initial hours were brutal. Greer systematically dismantled Michael's career, twisting every statement he'd made on the apex into evidence of his incitement to racial unrest. It was a public lynching, performed under the guise of congressional oversight. Michael maintained his composure, answering every question with quiet, precise facts, refusing to give Greer the angry performance he craved. He knew Greer needed him to look like the stereotype, aggressive, irrational, consumed by rage. But then Greer threw down the doctored photo. The image of Michael next to the neo-Nazi figure, a lie so grotesque and public that it instantly tainted everything he had ever stood for. It was the final, vicious blow to his moral authority. As the flashes subsided and the noise dropped into a stunned, hateful silence, Michael's composure finally shifted. He didn't shout. He didn't cry. He looked at Greer, then at the photo, and then directly into the main, unblinking lens of the primary news camera. The rage that surged within him was no longer a volcano, but an iceberg. Cold. Massive. Unmoving. A strategy instantly formed in his mind. They wanted character assassination. They wanted him to be the stereotype. They wanted to reduce him to a single, ugly, manipulated image. He would let them. He would let the whole world believe the lie for a moment, while he gathered the truth David died for. He slowly, deliberately, reached out and picked up the photo, holding the lie in his own hands. He folded it cleanly, tucked it into his jacket pocket, and met Senator Greer's triumphant gaze. I have no further comment on this matter, Senator, Michael said, his voice flat, drained of all emotion, chillingly professional. But I assure you, what you have begun here today, you will have to finish. Greer smiled, a predatory, sickeningly satisfied smile. We already have, Mr. Jordan. We already have. Michael B. Jordan stood up. His suit was impeccable. His movement was precise. The world saw a disgraced, broken host. Michael saw the path forward. He knew the true, terrifying scale of the system now. And he knew the fight was just beginning. The Senate hearing room was a hollow shell now. The Klieg lights were cooling, the spectators gone, leaving only the trash of their urgency, discarded coffee cups, scrawled notes, and the heavy residue of institutional betrayal. Michael sat alone in the deserted gallery, the doctored photo crumpled in his pocket. Leah Vance found him there, her face drawn, her lawyer's composure fracturing at the edges. That was a declaration of war. Michael, she stated, her voice tight. Greer didn't care about the contract. He wanted the public to see the anger, the stereotype. He wanted you to lash out so they could call you feral. You gave them nothing. I gave them silence. Michael corrected, the word flat, almost devoid of sound. Silence is the only thing they can't edit. But David is dead, Leah. And that photo, that's their insurance policy. They're not fighting a lawsuit. They're fighting the truth David had. Leah opened her briefcase, pulling out a small, encrypted USB drive. David gave me this the day before his accident. It's a dead drop. He was afraid to email it. It's got a key to a private server he used at Argos, outside the main network. He called it the vault. He said if the memo, the one confirming the Argos DC bond fraud, wasn't on his person, it was there. Then we stopped playing defense. Michael said, standing up. The movement was slow, deliberate. He wasn't the public host anymore. He was a man focused on a surgical operation. This isn't about clearing my name. It's about breaking the machine that killed David. Later that night, Michael stood on the balcony of his DC apartment, overlooking the indifferent sprawl of the city. He felt the fear, a cold, metallic taste at the back of his throat. It wasn't the fear of losing his career. It was the chilling realization of his own mortality and the vastness of the enemy. Argos wasn't a company. It was a shadow government. David's death was proof. Every step you take, they will multiply the danger. The question wasn't if he could win, but how much he was willing to lose. He saw his face reflected in the dark glass, no longer the handsome leading man, but a haunted fugitive. The only way out was through. The cold resolve hardened his fear into a weapon. Michael needed a distraction, a test. He met Marcus Cole, the eager journalist, in a noisy, nondescript bar far from Capitol Hill. Marcus was full of manufactured outrage. Man, what they did to you was straight-up bullshit. Racist theatrics. Look, Ethel's already scrubbing your digital footprint. This is my chance to break the real story. Give me the documents. I'll make Greer pay. Michael watched Marcus's eyes, too bright, too hungry. He wasn't looking at a friend. He was looking at an opportunist desperate for the scoop. The documents are secure, Marcus, Michael said casually, leaning closer. But I need you to float a specific rumor. Say that David hid the evidence, a secure backup, at the old Argos field office in Georgetown, the one they closed last year. Make sure the rumor gets to Greer's press secretary by midnight. Marcus's eyes widened. Georgetown? Got it. That's a bomb, Michael. Exclusive? Just make the noise, Marcus. 2 hours later, Leah intercepted an emergency alert. An unmarked security van, registered to Argos, was seen circling the abandoned Georgetown office. He took the bait, Leah observed, her expression grim. He didn't leak the rumor to a rival network. He leaked it directly to Argos. Marcus Cole is their wire. Michael didn't feel rage, just a profound, sinking disappointment. Of course. The system rewards collaboration, not integrity. He gets the credit for neutralizing the Georgetown threat, and maybe a promotion. Marcus Cole was the system in miniature, the lure of access overriding the duty of truth. Michael and Leah drove 50 miles outside D.C., guided by the encrypted data on the USB stick. The Argos private server wasn't in a high-security data center. It was in a dilapidated storage unit facility rented under a shell corporation, hidden behind a legitimate-looking refrigeration business. The air inside the concrete block structure was stagnant, smelling of dust and stale metal. David's storage unit was Unit 113. Leah handled the physical breach, a quiet genius with electronics. She disabled the magnetic lock and the silent alarm in under 90 seconds. Inside, the unit was small, containing a single large server rack bolted to the floor, humming faintly. David's last sanctuary. Michael knelt, accessing the rear panel. His hands, usually so expressive and powerful on screen, moved with the delicacy of a thief. He inserted the USB drive. A holographic interface flickered to life. The server name, Tantalus. Tantalus, Michael murmured. The Greek myth. Punishment for revealing the secrets of the gods. David knew what he was doing. Leah scanned the file structure. It's here. The October 15th memo. They knew the surveillance system was faulty before they sold it to the DC police. They pushed the bonds anyway. This is fraud. This is criminal negligence. This is why Greer tried to erase you. Michael started the download. The progress bar crawled, agonizingly slow. 1%. 2%. During the wait, Leah found something else. A small, sealed envelope taped underneath the server rack. It was addressed to Michael. He tore it open. Inside was a handwritten note from David. If you're reading this, they got me. The truth is simple. The bonds weren't just for equipment. They were a slush fund. Half the money went into a private equity trust based in the Caymans. The trust's primary beneficiary is Redwood Holdings. The CEO of Redwood is Greer's daughter. Michael felt a cold rush of clarity. Greer wasn't just a puppet. He was personally enriched. The Senate hearing wasn't about politics. It was about protecting a family fortune built on state corruption and false surveillance. 80%. 85%. A sudden, sharp beam of light sliced through the crack under the storage unit door. Then the sound, heavy, muffled footsteps. Not the soft shoes of security, but the tactical boots of law enforcement. DC police. Open the door! Federal warrant. Michael snatched the USB drive. The download was at 98%. Leah, go! The back vent. Now! The data, Michael. I have it. Go! He shoved her toward the small, dusty ventilation shaft at the back wall. She scrambled in, disappearing into the dark, narrow space. The main door burst inward with a hydraulic crack. Uniformed officers flooded the small space, weapons raised. Leading them was a tall, severe figure in a dark suit, an FBI agent named Harding, his face a hard mask of accusation. Michael B. Jordan, you are under arrest, Agent Harding stated, his voice booming in the confined space. On what charges, Agent? Michael demanded, his hands up, the USB clutched tight in his right fist. Harding didn't hesitate. Conspiracy to commit manslaughter, obstruction of justice, and wire fraud. We have evidence suggesting you orchestrated the disappearance of David Mills and attempted to destroy financial records related to Ethel Broadcasting's municipal bond irregularities. Manslaughter. They weren't just framing him for fraud. They were pinning David's death on him. This was the system's genius. Use a tragedy to bury the truth forever. An officer roughly slammed Michael against the server rack. The pain was sharp, but the internal shock was greater. They had shifted the narrative entirely. He was no longer a whistleblower. He was a criminal, a killer. As the officers secured him, Agent Harding walked over to the server, touching it delicately with a gloved hand. He looked down at the wires. Shame, Jordan, Harding muttered, not looking at Michael. We know you were desperate. But tampering with the evidence of a homicide is a serious offense. Michael looked back at the server. He hadn't touched the hard drive with his bare hands. But lying next to the discarded server cables was a small, personalized gold cufflink, Michael's signature brand. It had not been there before. It was planted. The entire operation, the ambush, the timing, the charge, was designed to ensure that when Michael finally released the truth, the world would only hear the scream of a murderer trying to save himself. As they dragged him out, the sirens of the approaching motorcade screamed through the night, not a call for justice, but the cold, harsh song of his downfall. He glanced toward the back vent, a sliver of hope that Leah and the data had escaped. His fight was now a fight for his life, and the truth was sealed in his fist, locked inside a prison of concrete and corrupted law. The holding cell was cold. Not just physically, but a dry, sterile cold that seeped into the bones and promised anonymity. Michael B. Jordan, the celebrated host, the cultural icon, was reduced to an inmate number and a set of handcuffs that bit into his skin. His reflection in the polished steel bench showed a man stripped bare, the tailored suit exchanged for rough cotton, the famous face lined with 4 days of sleep deprivation. The news loops played silently on a small, high-mounted TV monitor. Every channel showed his mugshot next to the grotesque headline, MBJ, manslayer? Marcus Cole, looking solemn and betrayed, offered expert commentary on Michael's erratic behavior leading up to the tragedy. The entire world was watching the narrative they built, the angry man who finally snapped, committing murder to cover his fraud. Michael did not rage. He sat, silent, conserving the iceberg of his resolve. They want me to break. They want the stereotype to win. Then, a movement outside the bars. Leah Vance, immaculate and fierce, stood with a paralegal, carrying stacks of legal folders that seemed too heavy for her slight frame. She had surfaced from the shadows. She had the data. They're rushing the bail hearing, Michael. Tomorrow morning. It's a televised formality. They want to deny bail, solidify the danger to the community profile, and bury you in Rikers before the evidence can see the light, Leah stated, her voice low and rapid. And the drive? The Tantalus data? Safe. Encrypted. But if I introduce it now, they'll have the whole night to discredit it, call it forged. The judge here is loyal to the machine. We can't win on evidence alone. We have to win on narrative. Michael leaned close to the mesh, his eyes steady. David's note. Greer's daughter and Redwood Holdings. That's the core. It's a connection, not proof of murder. We need Greer to confirm the connection himself. Michael smiled, a cold, dangerous expression devoid of humor. He will. He thinks I'm defeated. He thinks he's attending my public execution. We changed the stage. The courtroom felt like a theater built for judgment. Every seat was packed. Cameras whirred behind the press barrier. Senator Greer, observing the proceedings from his private Senate office via closed circuit, believed this was his final victory lap. Agent Harding, seated next to the prosecution, looked confident. The prosecutor, a sharp-featured woman named Davis, was relentless. She presented the evidence. The proximity of Michael to David's death, the attempted destruction of the Argo server, and finally, the damning gold cufflink, Michael's signature brand, found at the crime scene. The defendant's actions speak to the desperation of a wealthy man caught in the act. He murdered his confidant, Mr. Mills, to silence him, and then staged a clumsy attempt to destroy the evidence of his own fraud. Davis concluded, pointing a dramatic finger at Michael. We asked the court to deny bail. The defendant is a flight risk and a proven danger. Leah stood for the defense, calm amidst the storm. She didn't argue the evidence. Your Honor, we are not here to debate the fabricated timeline of a manufactured crime, Leah began, her voice gaining power. We are here to address the motive for that fabrication. We submit an affidavit of countercomplaint, citing racketeering, bribery, and wrongful death, naming Argo's defense, Ethel Broadcasting, and Senator Greer, who used his position to orchestrate a smear campaign against my client after he attempted to expose systemic fraud. The courtroom buzzed. This wasn't a defense. It was an attack. Prosecutor Davis jumped up, furious. Objection, Your Honor. This is a baseless distraction. It is an attempt to use this homicide hearing as a political platform. Sustained in part, the judge said, rapping his gavel, his eyes darting nervously toward the cameras. Ms. Vance, confine your remarks to the issue of bail. Mr. Jordan, do you have any statement to make before the court renders its decision? Michael stood. He was no longer the defendant, but the host of the Apex. He fixed his eyes on the main camera lens, bypassing the court entirely, speaking directly to the nation. Your Honor, I have no statement regarding my guilt, but I must address the gold cufflink the prosecution holds as a physical piece of evidence. Michael began, his voice clear, measured, utterly devoid of the rage Greer expected. That cufflink is genuine. It is mine, and I did not leave it at the storage unit. He paused, letting the statement hang. The courtroom was silent. I left it 3 weeks ago in Senator Greer's private office when I met him to discuss the moral turpitude clause that conveniently ended my career before David Mills died. He looked toward Agent Harding, whose eyes widened, betraying a flicker of panic. The cufflink was planted, not by the senator, but by his cleanup crew, the agents he controls. Because the senator knows that when the Tantalus data is released, and it will be released, it will show the true motive for all of this. The millions of dollars that flowed from Argos's faulty police surveillance contracts through a slush fund to a private equity trust called Redwood Holdings. Michael paused, the tension unbearable. Then, the final, surgical cut. The CEO of Redwood Holdings, Your Honor? Senator Greer's daughter. This isn't about a rogue television host. This is a family using federal contracts, police equipment, and the death of a whistleblower to line their pockets. My life was taken to protect the senator's dirty money. The explosion was instantaneous. Reporters vaulted the barriers, screaming questions. Prosecutor Davis turned on Agent Harding, who was already halfway out the side door. The judge hammered his gavel repeatedly, but the sound was lost in the chaos. Later that afternoon, the judge, citing clear and compelling evidence of compromised federal investigation and severe conflicts of interest, set Michael's bail to a nominal bond and ordered an immediate stay on the criminal charges. He was released, but the charges weren't dismissed. The system merely paused. Leah met him on the courthouse steps. The light was blinding, the crowd a screaming vortex of media and supporters. She handed him his cell phone. Harding is under investigation. Greer is still on the Hill, but the DOJ has opened a file on Redwood Holdings. We won the battle, Michael. The truth is out. It's published. It's viral. Michael looked around at the chaos. He saw the faces, black, white, old, young, screaming his name, holding signs demanding Greer's resignation. He had ignited a movement, but the cost was visible in his eyes. He had lost his friend, his reputation, and his naive faith in systems. He was a hero, standing amidst the wreckage of his own life. He lowered his head as the security escort guided him through the crowd. He was exhausted. He was alive. Suddenly, a journalist, pushing past the barricade, shouted a question, the sound cutting through the noise like a whip. Mr. Jordan, now that you're free, what is your next move? Michael stopped at the door of the waiting car. He looked directly at the journalist, then at the camera flash reflecting off the car window. The image was a direct echo of the man who stood silently at the Senate hearing, absorbing the insult. He gave the journalist no fiery monologue. He gave the system no soundbite. His eyes were cold, clear, and focused. He stepped into the car, and before the door closed on the noise, he spoke one word. Watch! The door slammed shut. The engine roared. The silence, for the first time, belonged to Michael.